I am Christy Bishop, and welcome to What Nobody Tells Us. Today's episode is an educational powerhouse, and it is so enlightening for anyone who is really looking to, or has just even thought about, reconsidering their relationship with alcohol. Earlier this year, I mentioned on a previous episode, Christina Palmacero with blood sugar, that I literally woke up on January 1st of this year and I was like, I got to do things differently. I didn't even have a choice. It was like my brain had been reprogrammed. And part of that non-choice situation was like, I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to stop caffeine. I'm going to turn my diet around. I'm going to figure out my hormones. I'm going to figure out my enzymes, my levels, my everything, my brain fog, my whatever. But alcohol needed to go. And I don't know about you, but the last year and a half or 2 years, my body's tolerance of alcohol has really changed, or had really changed. Red wine no longer agreed with me. White wine was tolerable, but not super enjoyable. Martinis, which were really my go-to. God, I love a good gin martini. Still do. I just couldn't do it anymore. And so I made the conscious decision, like, I'm taking a break from alcohol. I'm going to do dry January, and then we're going to see what happens. Because again, I don't know if any of you have experienced any of these symptoms. I was starting to, even after like half a glass of wine, it was starting to wake up in the middle of the night, absolutely shot out of a cannon. My adrenaline was through the roof. My anxiety was through the roof. My heart was beating. My mouth was dry. It was crazy. And I would be up for 3 or 4 hours, and it was just absolutely not worth it. When I was drinking red wine, my eyes would start to itch. I would start to sneeze immediately. I would get a terrible headache. I was like, well, this is absolutely not fun. And then hangovers, even after one glass of anything, I just felt like crap the next day. So I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I was very confused. I didn't know it was my body, to be honest with you. So I was like, we're done here. We're going to take a minute. Alcohol and I are going to take a quick break, and maybe we'll be back. Maybe we won't. Well, it's now August, and I have had maybe, if we're being liberal, I've had like 6 drinks in 8 months. And when I say drinks, I've had like a quarter of a glass of a drink. And whereas I used to be able to polish off like 3 or 4 glasses of wine in a sitting, now it will literally take me, I don't know, 3 hours to have 4 sips. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's absolutely true. The point of this is that every single thing has changed for the better. Every single thing, things that I never in my life would have considered. And to say that it was a good decision to go alcohol free is the understatement of the world. To that end, today's guest is an expert on going alcohol free. Her name is Karolina Rzadkowolska, and she's a coach, she's a speaker, and she's an author of a book called Euphoric: Ditch Alcohol and Gain a Happier, More Confident You. The cover is absolutely beautiful. It is euphoric itself, and her social handle I just love. It's euphoric AF. I think it's very clever. But she, oh my gosh, you guys, she enlightened me. And I thought I knew a lot about like what alcohol does to your body. You want to talk about what nobody tells us? This whole episode enlightens us so much on what alcohol does to us, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and then also what happens short-term and long-term when you stop or just take a break. So if you're sober curious, if you don't know what your life is like as an adult without alcohol in your system, it might be time to find out, and you might just be overjoyed at what you discover about yourself. So don't be scared. This is not about preaching. Don't drink ever again. Don't do it. This is only my decision. It's Karolina's decision. I did it for me. I didn't do it for anyone else. But if you are curious about what this experience can do for you, I really encourage you to listen to this episode and share it, and enjoy. Hi, Karolina. I'm so excited to welcome you to the show. Thank you for joining What Nobody Tells Us.
Oh, thank you so much. I've been so excited to talk to you.
So let's just jump into it. First of all, I want to plug your book, Euphoric. It's amazing. I literally have it dog-eared everywhere. I have it highlighted.
Oh my goodness, I love it.
You're a good student. But I want to just start by talking about your own story, going alcohol free, and the inspiration, if you will.
Well, thank you so much. I feel like alcohol is such a polarizing topic. We have such black and white ideas about alcohol use in our society. And, I think that when I was going through my journey, I was so locked into either you have a problem or you don't, and if you don't fit either of those two categories, what are you supposed to do with it? And so that's like my story. It's kind of this messy middle story. I started drinking in college, as most people do. I used it to feel more popular, more confident, meet people. I also used it to cope with heartbreaks and all the kind of stuff you go through as a young adult. So it really started to form this central place in my life. And I was way drinking too much, over partying, all that kind of stuff. But then I got older. And so the drinking changed and I got really into health and mindfulness. I, started a career, I got married. I really kind of settled down and wanted to create this adult experience. And so my drinking went from being this like kind of party animal to, okay, well, it's something you do on the weekend and it's something you do with your sushi dinners and your wine tastings and trying to make it more sophisticated. And so, like Monday through Thursday, I lived a really healthy lifestyle. I would go to yoga classes, I would meditate, I would drink my green juice, but alcohol played such a central role every single weekend. Every single weekend, no matter what, drinking was involved, whether I was going out with friends or hanging out with people or just having some wine at home to decompress from the week, right? And like clockwork, every Monday morning, I woke up feeling like a shell of myself. Every single Monday morning, I didn't sleep well. I was, feeling ashamed. I was super lethargic and grumpy about having to go to work. And every single Monday, I was just like, please, can we just not drink this week? Please, can we just take a break? And then I would look at my social calendar and be like, oh, well, you have that dinner party on Saturday and you have that networking event on Friday. And it was almost like this permission I wasn't granting myself to just listen to my desires to not drink. And, for so long too, this was back a few years ago now, there's so much more happening in the alcohol free space. But back then, if you were to question your relationship with alcohol and stop drinking, what did that mean about you? Does that mean you're an alcoholic and you have to start going to AA meetings? Because that's what I assumed, right? So this like stubbornness of not wanting to go that route really also kept me trying to just moderate more, just drink less, just, which continued my brain getting so overly focused on a silly beverage at the end of the day. And finally, I heard about dry January, and that was like this light bulb moment that I had where I was like, oh, I can just take a break. I don't have to like explain to everyone about this. I can just not drink for a month and it won't be a big deal. And that was like the permission I needed to just finally try alcohol free living. And I fell in love. I fell in love with how deep my sleep was. I fell in love with the peaceful mornings I had. I fell in love with how clear I could be without worrying about a beverage, how much more I appreciated nature and playing with my niece and just these little beautiful moments of life. When February comes around and I love not drinking, but I also don't really see myself doing it for forever. Like normal adults just drink, so therefore I have to drink. And I drink a few times in February socially, and it really sucks. Like the contrast is so intense for me. The sleep is so ruined when I drink, even just a drink or two. I feel fuzzy the next day. I feel ashamed. I feel just constantly like obsessing over what is it, how much, when, where, why. And I'm like, this isn't worth it. This is like nothing compared to the incredible experience I was having in January. And why am I drinking in the first place? I thought it was to have a more enjoyable experience. If it's not doing that, then maybe this alcohol thing isn't what I thought it was. And so I decided to go alcohol free at that point, or really take another break, which turns into almost 5.5 years later, which I haven't drank. And I'll have to say that the journey I embarked on that point, every single week that went by, every single month that went by, my physical health, my mental health, my emotional, my spiritual health just kept ramping up and improving and improving. So much so that everything changed in my life. I went from unfulfilled, working in a cubicle, waiting for the weekend every weekend to drink, to creating a fulfilling life every single day, launching a business, writing a book, becoming an expert, sharing my message with other people where I really feel that fulfillment every day. It's not reserved for a quick buzz on the weekend.
First of all, congratulations. That's amazing. And there's so many different options now. Like you had mentioned, it's a lot easier to do because thinking about young millennials and Gen Z and their desire to drink less, I think exactly because of what you're saying, because they want to early on in their life have the life that they want and that they feel like they deserve, not have to work 60 years to earn that and to kind of have to then retox on the weekends. But thinking about 5.5 years ago, you mentioned something in your book about detox just to retox. I thought that was such a profound way to describe what I was doing, what so many of my friends were doing. And can you describe detox just to retox in more detail?
Yeah, so I think health consciousness is really big, at this time and age in our generations. Like most of us understand that, we want to live more healthy lives. And I think a lot of people have that as a big value in their life, So it's moving your body, eating the foods that make you feel well and nourishing yourself, and just having a general outlook of health in your life. So it's like we do all these things to be healthy, right? We put all this attention and effort on that. And then we drink a poison on the weekend. And that's just this blind eye we create. And the poison is actually called a health beverage in some circles, which is the biggest paradox ever because it's not. And all these studies are proving that how bad it is. But it actually was masquerade as a health beverage for almost 30 years, ever since the 90s, right? Red wine's supposed to be good for you. And we haven't really been honest, I think, about how much that it's affecting us, how much it is robbing us of that good sleep and lowering our ability to handle our emotions and having more anxiety in our lives and more shame and more, rumination, just all this stuff. And so to me, this detox just to retox, it's like we do everything to be healthy for some portion of the week. And then like my cycle, right? Every weekend I was over drinking. And with over drinking, here we go. I'm not waking up to work out. I'm not eating the foods I want to eat. Every Monday morning, it's like I took 2 steps forward last week, but then I just took 5 steps backward every weekend. And my body, it was always really working overtime to detox this poison. So it wasn't able to really improve and its functionality around all the other things I want to do. And it's just really uncanny because you can find really, really health centric circles out there where alcohol plays a huge, huge role in that culture. And it's just a huge paradox that, like, why alcohol has been turned such a blind eye when it comes to the health equation compared to all the other things we watch out for. I mean, for example, I had read books about the dangers of sugar or saturated fat or all these other things, trans fats, and no one was ever talking about alcohol, right? And it's like this thing that we're all doing. It's part of our embedded into our like cultural institutions. Um, yeah.
I think it's interesting the idea of also in the book you mentioned that, and I had not thought of this, that so many wellness and health based events are sponsored by alcohol companies. And I went to one recently, and it was I love to play tennis, and there was a little happy hour afterwards where they had different tennis brands and they had different wellness brands and facial brands and internal probiotics, all of these things. But everyone was walking around with their glass of wine or their cocktail, and the only complaint at the end of it was that they didn't open the bar early enough. And the paradox to me of we've just done all of these wonderful healthy things for ourselves, and we're loading ourselves up with vitamins, we're loading ourselves up with green juice and kale and chicken and whatever, but then we're just retoxing our bodies and literally putting a poison in it. So to me, that was such a profound realization, that the role that alcohol plays in society is so ingrained in us that we don't even think about it. Can you talk a little bit about the role of alcohol in society and where that's come from? Why is it such a natural part of us that we need to drink? Not want to drink, we need to drink.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And obviously, alcohol has played a long role in our human history, but it's really different now. So, for example, women didn't drink for most of our human history, right? And it's been something that has been available to people who have a lot of disposable income, right? So, it's not been necessarily something you celebrate with very occasionally versus today in our modern era, we have so much of this disposable income and convenience. You can go to any convenience store or whatever to find this alcohol. And so what's happened is they've been studying it in the last 30 years or so. Alcohol use among average citizens has gone up so much higher, and especially among women. What's happened? So basically, in the early 90s, red wine was stamped as a health beverage. It was said that it's good for you, that drinking is good for your heart. And basically, alcohol culture has also been ramped up a lot too. So red wine really got, or just olive wine got really mass marketed in the United States. Back in the 80s, they said that most households drink more soda than wine, which is very interesting. Not that soda's any better, but it's really interesting how much that's changed, today. So red wine gets heavily marketed. We have a huge increase in just alcohol culture when it comes to craft breweries. Think about 30 years ago, there were no craft breweries anywhere, right? Now it's on every street corner. We have this winery tasting. It gets so married into this idea of sophistication and glamour. And this idea of drinking every day also gets really pronounced in our society. It's also obviously part of all these social, cultural institutions. It's you're going out, it's everywhere like that. But what's been now seen over this last 30 years is drinking levels have gone up so much higher, and doctors are seeing these adverse effects from people who they say are non addicted, right? So normal drinkers are deteriorating their bodies with all of this alcohol. And the thing is that when you're seeing all of it, when you're seeing everyone around you drink most of the time and not just stop at one drink, it just slowly tells your subconscious there must be nothing wrong with this. This is harmless. It must not be that bad for my body. And, as you were saying about that wellness event, for example, I've seen breast cancer fundraisers be sponsored by alcohol. There is like nothing more correlated than alcohol and your risk of breast cancer. Like even just 2 drinks a week will increase your risk of breast cancer from, with that alcohol. And I'm sorry, but 2 drinks a week is like the littlest amount that I've ever heard of when it comes to drinking, right? So it's like, it's just so uncanny how much we're showing the science is showing how unhealthy it is for us and how really there's no safe amount of drinking. And it's fine that people choose to drink. Everyone has the autonomy, but to have it be mixed up into any kind of wellness conversation or healthy kind of living is kind of where I think we've gone wrong. And so we're kind of changing the tide is turning a little bit. We're having so much more information come out about how, disastrous the effects of alcohol really are on our risk, and everybody should just be super aware of that. And I think what now is happening is that for so long, the expectation to drink was always just there. Like if you went to a social event and said no thanks, someone would be like, "Oh, are you pregnant? Or do you have a problem?" Right? And so what I think is happening now and what we are a part of and what we're changing together is giving people the true choice. Someone can drink, someone cannot drink, but to have an expectation that one must drink just
Yes.
because they're out socializing, I think is wrong.
Yeah. So my experience, so the capital P's that you mentioned is completely true. Like, are you pregnant? Oh, the awkward question somebody asked you, or, oh, are you drinking too much? Like, oh, is there something I need to know but shouldn't know? It's regardless, it's awkward. So the experience that I had was literally just January 1st of this year of 2023. I was like, I'm done because I'd been experiencing so many of the things that you talk about in the book. And I'd been expressing them to friends who honestly couldn't understand because they weren't going through the same things. So, for example, as you talk about, your relationship with alcohol changes as you get older, but also the physiological effects of alcohol in your body also change. And our experiences sound like they were very similar. So, what I was experiencing, which I didn't know what it was, I was explaining to my husband that around 3 o'clock in the morning, I called it the 3 a.m. nightmare wake up. I would wake up as though it was like, like just literally shot out of a cannon with adrenaline, with cortisol. Even it was getting to the point where if I had one drink, that was happening. My anxiety was through the roof. My heart rate was racing. I felt like my body temperature was hot. It was like I was sweating, not from perimenopause, from this, minute amount of alcohol. And then I just felt off. And it was like, again, but I felt like I had to. So whenever we were out with friends, I was just, okay, I'm not going to drink a lot tonight. I'm just going to have that one drink. But then it's the cocktail ritual that then starts out the evening. And then you move on to the wine ritual. So you're already, 2 glasses in. And by that point in time, you might as well just continue. So you've had a cocktail, 1 or 2 or 3 glasses of wine, and then you've disappointed yourself in the promise you made to yourself. So what I found was I was constantly disappointing myself. The way that you frame it in the book is disappointing future you, and that alcohol keeps you stuck in a place that you're not meant to be. Can you explain that a little bit? Because I thought that was a really beautiful way, and it really connected with me and honestly helped me continue to get over the alcohol hump.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as more mindful, more intuitive women, like we can recognize these effects of alcohol. So our initial reaction is, okay, well, how can I minimize it? How can I drink less? Right. So most people get into this like rule system or like some kind of moderation game of, okay, I'll have only this many drinks tonight. Okay, I won't do, this kind of a thing. And it's so uncanny because even after you explained, even if you have just the one drink, you're still having those adverse effects in the middle of the night, right? It's that cortisol, that adrenaline effect. So it's kind of like, is it even worth it? Like, are we kidding me, myself, right? And so I think that as I was going through it, I would always do these rules. I would always just tell myself, okay, only this much or this or that. And it just felt like constantly this opportunity to let myself down, constantly an opportunity to not be able to trust myself. Sometimes I really overdid it. Like I had a bazillion drinks at a party
Mhm.
when I was only supposed to have one. And sometimes I would have two and then I still felt crappy the next day. So no matter
Yeah.
what, it's like I can't trust myself. I can't abide by my word. And you're always like going over the same rumination. It's like we're obsessed over literally a
Yeah.
beverage at the end of the day. And so when you bring in this future you, when I woke up not feeling well, it was almost as if I was like, Karolina, did you not care last night? Did you not think about me? Did you not think about how I'd feel? We've been in this position so many times.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you just respect me enough to know I didn't want to feel like this morning? And so
Mhm.
when I changed and I stopped drinking, and I really woke up every day feeling appreciated and loved by that past version of me who made choices based on what that future version of me wanted to experience, not the, oh, well, she'll deal with the hangover, whatever, that's not my problem. But the, wow, I can't believe that past version of me put her, little head to bed sober and woke up feeling so delicious and so yummy. And I think it's this symbolism that builds much deeper self love, right?
Yeah.
It's like this reconnection of this relationship with yourself, your self worth, what you deserve. You deserve to feel healthy every day. You deserve to wake up feeling well. Yes, occasionally we're going to have a headache or this or that going on, but to purposely over and over make sure that you don't feel good on a daily basis or weekly basis, like, that isn't going to be good for our self worth and our self esteem. And so
Yeah.
that's how I kind of see self love. And that was a huge ticket, not only to rebuild that, but to catapult that even further in my life, to love myself more, to reevaluate so many other things like my career or what I was doing, for my life.
So
Yeah.
the dry January element is it's like the only time a year, and I've done it every year for years, and it's never thought about continuing to not drink, but it's interesting. It's the only time of year where it's okay, where you don't have to explain it. Like you don't have, like I think you mentioned in the book, and I've heard before, alcohol is the only poison that we have to explain not participating in, or we have to explain stopping. So similar experience to you. I felt absolutely incredible. And week by week by week, it was getting better and better. And then here comes February. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. And so went out to dinner with friends or went out to a friend's house. And immediately within getting there, and that's totally fine. No, nothing wrong with this. What do you want to drink? What do you want to drink? And I would say, I don't really want anything. And then the questions started. Because I was changed, or the attitudes shifted towards me because I was changing the paradigm and I wasn't engaging in the ritual. And it was really surprising to me, perhaps in a naive way, about how some of my closest friends had a very difficult time with the fact that I was making a different decision than they were. And I ultimately realized it says it was everything to do with them and nothing to do with me at all. But can you talk about a little bit about limiting beliefs and the reasons that people drink and the reasons that some people might be triggered by others who don't drink, which is something that it's remedied itself, but I felt very strongly in the beginning.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you had the emotional intelligence to recognize that it was all about them and not you, because it's like holding up a mirror to someone else. And when you're not participating in something and they are, they deep down do feel insecurities about their own drinking. But, in social public life, we all do it and we all just kind of sign that BS away and just like go on the merry ways. And so when someone doesn't participate, it kind of really stirs into their intuition, like, wait a minute, we didn't like this either, but we're not listening to that voice. So
Yeah.
it gets, and some people aren't as conscious or aware at like what journey or what stage they're on with like just recognizing how much alcohol serves them or not, right? I think it's always a benefit to them either way, whether they react poorly or not, because it's giving them more awareness and that's going to help them hopefully process some of those feelings that came up that might have not been comfortable. I remember that doing that to other people. Like I remember in my 20s, like going to a wedding and someone I think just gave birth to a baby and wasn't drinking, and I was like, "Oh, that's fine." Like, what do I
Yeah.
know to say that? And I was so insecure to have someone not drink in front of me because it really puts a light to my choices, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I can definitely relate from the other side, but
Definitely.
I think what we're doing is like we're giving more permission to people who are might be thinking the same lines and want to, maybe change or reevaluate alcohol, but are really scared of that social stigma. So like you're just as much a disruptor as you are a role model, as you are a
Yeah.
leader, as you are inspiring other people that you don't even know you might be inspiring. And when it comes to limiting beliefs, all of us have an attachment to alcohol, no matter who you are. If you drink on a regular basis, there's some kind of benefit or pleasure or dependence that you found on alcohol, that it serves you in certain ways. And a lot of these are very subconscious, but for the most part, we think that it either like relaxes us a lot and that like it helps bring down all the stress and the worries, or we think that it brings us up. So it brings more fun and excitement into our lives. And both are kind of underlying core things that believe that we ourselves cannot do that for our own states and that we need something outside of us. So, for example, like a core thing that often happens to a lot of people who are more introverted or shy is that they're growing up, on the more quiet side, and then they start drinking. And now everything changes. Now they can finally be that more extroverted version of themselves. And that's really what happened to me. And so I formed this belief and this attachment onto alcohol that it was a tool that I needed to be more confident, more popular, more social. And every single time I drank, I reinforced that I needed alcohol to be that person and that I could never cultivate that within. So, for example, it's almost as if I'm telling my self conscious, you're not likable, Carolina. Nobody actually wants to talk to you. You have nothing good to say. But here, have this drink and then you'll be better. And so instead of increasing my confidence or making me feel more confident naturally over time, it only decreases it. It only makes you feel like much worse. And I think what was so beautiful when I removed alcohol, I had to work through some of that awkwardness and some of that like fear and hesitance about, socializing. And that's a beautiful emotional evolution to go through instead of kind of putting all your problems on alcohol and never solving them. And so there's so many different beliefs we have, whether it's like, what will people think of me if I don't drink? So it's like our sense of belonging or people pleasing comes up, right? So alcohol is just like the symbol, and all these things are like deeper emotional issues we get to work through when we decide to reevaluate it. So it could be that people pleasing and the boundaries and the sense of belonging. It could be like whether or not you feel confident in your own skin or comfortable in your own skin, whether or not you feel fulfillment in your life. When we're drinking always to come down from stress, it's often because we're not looking at, do I even enjoy what I'm stressed about? Am I going just through the motions, doing all the things? Am I living a life for, someone else's expectations or a career or something? So imagine if you're on a hamster wheel and you have a super stressful day at work, and then every night you drink and you numb it. And then you do it over and over again. You're never going to learn the bigger lesson of like, wait a minute, there's something here for me. Why am I so stressed? Like, do I enjoy my work? Can I ask for better boundaries? Should I look for a promotion? Should I launch my own business because I don't really like what I'm doing? And so, like, it just stunts our emotional growth so much when we're always using alcohol to, solve any kind of a problem. And when we change our relationship with it, it's this incredible opportunity to heal and debunk a lot of those limiting beliefs. And some of the beliefs are so specific just to alcohol itself. Like we believe it has properties that it just doesn't have. So sometimes we can change some of those beliefs just with like some neuroscience or reading my book or other books on the topic.
It's interesting because then I started to ask people, so why are you drinking? Like I started thinking about myself, why was I drinking? And it was to feel good. It was that first hit, if you will. It's like, oh God, the first sip of the cold martini, the first sip of the wine after a stressful experience. And I want to get into part of the physiological conversation and physiological impacts because literally we've created a habit and a routine and a trigger in our head that the reward or the solution after a really long week of work or a really bad day is to literally like hit the sauce or just is to the shaking of the martini was like my go-to, and I still hear the shake and I'm like, oh, it's like Pavlov's dog, but I know what it does to me. But can you talk a little bit about the neuron pathways that we've created in our brain to literally crave a drink, even if it's one?
And I love having this conversation because it just goes to show how many people are dealing with this. Whereas before, we all just believed, right? It's only a certain person who gets like, into a dependence with alcohol. Alcohol is not addictive. And, you asked me earlier also about like the cultural kind of institution of alcohol. Like alcohol used to actually be considered a public health issue for everyone.
Oh,
And
wow.
things actually changed after prohibition to just be like, oh no, it's only for alcoholics. It's only for those people with this genetic abnormality, right? Everyone else just drink responsibly. And the alcohol industry really dominated that conversation. And it's really to their benefit because now they can market it all over the place and just, oh, but not for those people, right? So what I'm trying to say is that like alcohol affects all of us the same biologically for the most part, and it depends on how much you've been exposed to it and any other kind of personal relevance or trauma you might have to attach to it. But on a physiological level, this is what it's going to do to your body. So we usually drink because we want to relax, we have stressful days. Let's just point out the fact that we carry so much stress and value so much productivity in our culture today that the
Mhm.
permission to relax is not something that's granted to us, right? We get our worth from how busy we are. So obviously now we have this busy week, and alcohol comes to be the savior, right? To kind of calm us down and decompress our nervous system. So it's not doing that whatsoever. When you ingest alcohol, it is a depressant, so it's going to slow down your nervous system, and not just slow it down, it's actually slowly killing off cells, right? It's making them go into a coma. It's not actually soothing them, right, and decompressing them in any way.
Mhm.
But your body has a really good internal counterbalance system. So within about 20 minutes to an hour, it actually offshoots its own stress hormones to respond to that alcohol. That is cortisol, adrenaline, dynorphin. Dynorphin isn't very widely heard of, but it's basically the opposite of endorphins, and they make you feel very low, really low and sad. And a lot of people who commit suicide, they end up finding high levels of dynorphin in their brain. So every
Mm.
time we drink, we think we get this high, which we do, because alcohol does release an artificial level of dopamine in the brain, just like cocaine, just like heroin, but you're going to crash, and you're going to crash pretty soon, 20 minutes to an hour or so. That's why we all want another drink. So the highs worn off, we're now crashing. It doesn't feel too comfortable. We want more of what brought us the pleasure in the first place, right? So the brain says, let's have another drink. And we've taught it this over and over and over again that this is how it works, right? So most people want to have another drink after they have the first one. And people who are really good at only having one drink usually have very little alcohol exposure in their lives to begin with, right? And so as it's doing that, the stress hormones are up. Most of the time, we do keep drinking throughout the night. So especially what you were experiencing, that stress hormone and the depressive nature of alcohol wears off around 5 hours after your last drink. And then all you're left with is those stress hormones. And those just go coursing and racing through your bodies, making you so alert and also so hypercritical of yourself, right?
Yes.
You're just condemning everything you did. You're like, why, all this kind of stuff. And sometimes we can feel that in the middle of the night, like you said, or the next day, even people have heightened anxiety. Now, those stress hormones last in our body much longer than alcohol. Depending on your age, some people say you can metabolize alcohol within 1 hour. That might be true for like a 16-year-old. That's not true for women like you and me. It takes a few days. But when it comes to those stress hormones, they can actually last in your body for weeks. So every time we drink to relax, we're doing that for literally 20 minutes with this false relaxation. And I'll go into this one study that proves that. And then we respond with all these stress hormones that last for up to 2 weeks in our body. And so the question is really, is alcohol relaxing us, or is alcohol causing us to be on edge in the first place in order to want and need that relaxation? So I found that when you take a break, it happens over time. It's not going to be overnight, but your stress levels can just go down a little bit. So what used to be a mountain turns a little bit into a molehill. And you
Mhm.
also gain the emotional resilience to be able to just feel your feelings and process them in healthier ways than just reaching for a drink.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing about the relaxation as well, they once did this study where they put brain nodes on people who just left work. So they're able to measure their brain waves. And everyone has pretty chaotic brainwaves at that point. They're all stressed out, and they go sit down at a bar or a restaurant, and everybody orders a drink. And all of a sudden, all the brainwaves relax. Now, the kicker here is that nobody actually drank the drink yet. They just ordered it. Right?
Wow.
So our brain is responding to the anticipated reward, not to the actual alcohol itself. And that's
Yes.
what ends up happening over time with habit formation is your brain sees alcohol as a reward and relaxes in response to knowing it's going to get it. Not alcohol itself. Alcohol itself is going to hike up all of your stress. So it's not
Yeah.
actually relaxing you, right? And so it's just so uncanny. The power of rituals, the power of telling our brain it's time to relax, doesn't lie within some magical property in alcohol. That's our own job to do. And so
Yeah.
I personally love helping people find alcohol free drinks that they love, other rituals that they love that can really set aside that time at the end of a long day to really decompress and relax, you know? So an alcohol-free beverage, for example, will trigger the same kind of placebo effect. Like now it's time to, not answer any more emails, to just slowly unwind. And you can enjoy something that doesn't have ethanol in it. But any other ritual is going to do magic as well. And a lot of healthy ones that we can do, like taking a walk or a bath or some yin yoga, are really going to help us as well. It sounds super common sense, but it's like the common sense things do work. And it just takes a little bit of experimentation away from alcohol to just find something that relaxes you. I today have the littlest little ritual that totally sends my body into relaxation. During the day, I'll wear my hair down because I think it looks nicer that way. But when I'm done with my day, it goes into a top knot at the top of my head. And that just tells my body, you're done. The day is over. Now you can relax. It's so little.
Yeah, but it means so much. But you have to retrain your body, like
Yeah.
retrain your mind, which is such an interesting thing and that we don't think about because again, the detox to retox. And I think that study is fascinating that it wasn't even the actual alcohol itself, it was simply the ordering that made
Yeah.
people relax. That is completely wild. Obviously the podcast is called What Nobody Tells Us, so getting into the insights around the things that people don't really think about. Everyone thinks about the liver and everybody thinks about like, oh, alcohol, but I'm not an alcoholic, so my liver's fine. But separate from the liver, what are some of the other negative impacts on the body from alcohol? And this is not to say everybody should stop drinking, it's not the fear mongering about it, but I really learned a lot about it. Explained to me what was happening to myself, and then as I got out of alcohol, I could actually feel things repairing, which is interesting and recalibrating. But what else happens to the body besides impact on liver?
That's such a good question. And even just starting with the liver, obviously we have this image in our mind that it's only the most severe drinking. They once studied women. Women are more susceptible than men to this, but they once studied women and had them drink 2 drinks a day, which by no means is that excessive. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people do that, 2 drinks a day. I think they measured it for about 6 weeks. Within 6 weeks, they saw a huge change in their liver, accumulated liver fat and damage after just 6 weeks of drinking at those levels. So just insane. But what ends up happening is because alcohol is a toxin and our body has to, really over process it in order for our to keep everything safe, is it just puts your body on overdrive in all these other ways. Your cells are trying to purify it. It creates more anxiety on that cellular basis. It creates more inflammation. So what they found is that in other systems of our body, we have just as serious of effects. So first of all, cancer risk goes up. The breast cancer risk is about just a 15% increase with just 2 drinks a week. Other
Wow.
kinds of cancers are also increased because of alcohol use. It's literally a carcinogen. It's been known as a carcinogen since 1988. Our heart disease risk. And this is one of those ones that, everyone's been told that drinking a little bit of red wine is good for you. And it actually increases your blood pressure, it increases your heart rate and increases your cholesterol. It makes your heart less efficient at pumping blood throughout your body over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this can lead to, heart disease and heart attack risk and all these other things. Same thing with the inflammation in the brain. It leads to dementia and, just our neurons kind of firing over and over in the same stuck patterns. So there's no growth there and just being really stuck in that. And then later to Alzheimer's. And what's really cool, though, about all these kind of scarier statistics is that the rate that the body changes when you take a break and or go abstinent is actually quite fast. So they found that just a few weeks off of alcohol will start to heal that liver fat. Your blood pressure can go down within just 2 weeks. Your cholesterol can go down within 5 weeks. Your brain tissue actually starts to grow back, which is insane to me. Gray matter actually starts to grow back. After a year of being abstinent, it grows more than had you never drank before in your life. Like, because we become more adept at self control and thinking and analyzing than you ever were.
Mm-hmm.
Your cancer markers in your blood go down after a break. So the story here too is of how much incredible hope there is when your body's on this healing journey. just a few weeks. Like if in 6 weeks you could, drop your blood pressure by 10 or 20 points and your cholesterol by 20 points. I mean, how many Americans today are on statins or on blood pressure medication? Like this information isn't widely known whatsoever,
Right.
and my cholesterol went down 50 points.
Wow. Wow, that's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
did you know, so were you fighting high cholesterol and knowing it, like attributing it to alcohol, or did you even know that you had high cholesterol?
So I like the first time I was tested was in my mid 20s. So I'm obviously already drinking at that point since I
Right.
was, in college. And I had no idea. Like I was a ballerina growing up. I'm like fairly svelte. So I was like, what the hell? Like I'm not a 65-year-old smoker. Like what's going on here? I already ate pretty healthy, so I tried to make all the health changes. I've read all the books and nothing ever really did anything to my cholesterol as I would continue to have it measured over time until I switched alcohol.
Isn't it so interesting? So it's like, I think everybody does what you do. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I know I did what you did, where it's like you make all the healthy changes. Okay, I'm going to eat the chicken. I'm going to eat the kale. I'm going to have the green juice. I'm going to do my yoga. I'm going to do my meditation, or I'm going to go crazy hard and I'm going to do my hit workouts and I'm going to run like nuts. I'm going to do boot camps and I'm going to like just sweat like a dog. But then on the weekend, I'm still going to drink, and then nothing's going to change. One of the things that you said in the book to this point is crazy, and I did not know, is that alcohol is a 48-hour experience. So, like your cholesterol levels, your blood pressure, your heart rate, all of those things, your liver, but then the whole, detox to retox, it makes so much sense that even if you have a drink, say Friday night, and then Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening, and then Sunday you feel like complete hell, so you take it off, you're still, Monday, Tuesday processing what just happened before, even one day later, you start that all over again. I just had no idea that it was a 48-hour experience. To me, that was fascinating.
Yeah. And I think that's like what is a really good reminder too of like we're trading in that 10-minute high, a false high for that 48 hours of recuperating. Um, and when those stress hormones too can last even longer, like I drank every weekend. So Christy, I had honestly no idea what my body even felt like as an adult. It was always being affected by alcohol or the after effects of alcohol.
Right. No, absolutely. Why do you think it's the last thing that people try to not give up, but the last thing that they'll think to be like, oh, maybe I should take a break from that? Is it because they're, I don't want to use the word addicted because that's the big P with the problem, but they'll try everything else first to heal themselves physically, but alcohol not so much.
Yeah, I think obviously it's just not normalized. You know what I mean? Like, and we're told so much that only someone who's drinking in the morning should even look at their alcohol use. Like, even doctors wouldn't suggest it unless they're super savvy on this. Like even if you're getting depression or anxiety assessed at like a psychiatrist office, they won't even ask you about alcohol. And I just think that's egregious because like it has so much to do with how your mental health is doing. But it's the tides are turning, things are changing, we're getting more awareness. So for it's not normalized. And I do think that because it comes with this such a false sense of reward and it really comes to mean so much for all of us. Like for me, it was this comfort zone and confidence zone, right? So it helped me be more confident. But every time I wasn't feeling well the next day, that was like the excuse I needed to not live the life I really wanted. Like I always wanted to be a writer, for example, and I tried to write when I was drinking and it just never worked out. And it was seriously just that much easier to open a bottle of wine than write the next great American novel. And alcohol made it so easy to be okay with playing small. Like, it's okay. I don't feel good today. We're just not going to do that. And that was like what life just looked like all the time. And yes, I still got a lot done and all this kind of stuff, but it was this general attitude of I don't have to try so hard to put myself out there to do what I really want to do. I'll just be on the sidelines of my life. And so I think changing that story for myself and really confronting some of my bigger fears and facing failure and going for what I really wanted helped just debunk so many of my beliefs. And just going alcohol free helped that with that because like I never thought I could do that before. And when I did it and I was happy about it, it was like, what other limiting stories have I been telling myself that are completely false? So, I think it's so funny. Like, addiction is like a heavy word, and when we talk about physical addiction, like only 10% of the heaviest drinkers are even physically addicted. But when we talk about emotional dependence, where we use alcohol to meet some kind of deep need within us, we're talking about almost every regular drinker out there, right? Because otherwise, why would they be drinking? And if you would have to pay someone, how much money would you have to pay someone to quit drinking, when they're really attached to alcohol? That's already going to show you that like alcohol is very sticky, compared to other things because it comes to serve so many of our needs. And that's why I think also that like evolution that happens when you decide to take a break is so huge. It's not like just taking a break from sugar, even though that could be healthy too, but like it's a huge emotional revolution, as you're changing so much of meeting your needs better, taking care of yourself, loving yourself, and really believing in yourself in such a deeper way than before.
Yeah. You talked a lot about the physiological and physical effects when you stop drinking. Obviously, cholesterol goes down. In your case, heart rate is better. Emotionally, you're feeling better. The gray matter grows back, like you said, more than as if you had never drank before, which to me is absolutely incredible. But what I really want to talk about, which I think is something that people really don't know, and I certainly did not expect. It's been an ongoing epiphany and just getting stronger and stronger, which is so exciting, is this feeling of being alive. And I mean like alive, like capital letters alive. And I think the only way I can explain that, and obviously you'll explain it in far more detail, but just for myself, it was like dry January happened. Okay, great. Yeah, I started to feel a whole lot better. Had a few drinks in February. Absolutely not. Even with, a sip, I was starting to sneeze, itchy eyes. It was almost like my body was rejecting poison because I didn't have a tolerance for it anymore. But then I started to notice things like my brain fog, which I had attributed to perimenopause, attributed to just being tired, whatever it would be. I have a 6.5-year-old daughter. We're exhausted. My husband has been battling cancer for a long time. There's a lot of stress in our life. So I attributed it to that. My brain became clearer and clearer and clearer. I started to get so excited about every little thing. I was noticing things like like I've always been a person who really delves into gratitude, but I was literally noticing the colors of the flowers outside of our house. Right, just like it's one of those like stop and smell the roses, like no, literally stop and smell the roses. And just I was having such a different perspective on life, not feeling crappy in the morning, even after one drink. But then I think the other thing to your point about where you've always wanted to be a writer, I started to find myself being inspired about new ways, and my creativity came rushing back, like things I didn't realize had been stunted and or blunted because of just a little bit of alcohol. And I could directly attribute it to that, right? Like it's not misattribution, it's because of this. I've now broken through an emotional and physical plateau that I never knew I could. And I just keep saying to my husband and my friends, who are now asking questions, by the way, the conversation has been opened officially, and now they're sober curious. And it's now okay because it's been 5.5 months of me doing this. So it's not awkward. It's like, oh, this is a lifestyle. Teach me more, right? Like, which we'll
Yeah.
get into too. But I want to hear your perspective because this has been so incredible for me. And I cannot explain how excited I am for the future to be alcohol free.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Music to my ears. And obviously, that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this message because it's not about you can't drink or something like that. It's like we've never experienced this magical gift. And, you deserve to see what it feels like in your life. If you like it, keep going. If you don't like it, you can always go back. But this gift, I want to just give to everyone what you just explained and experienced yourself. And, from a like more biological level and neurochemical level, there's a really clear answer about why that happens, why it feels less clear and muddier with alcohol involved, and why you have this just incredible, like your senses are alive and you're just so much happier and appreciating the moment. Alcohol really desensitizes us to any happiness neurotransmitters. So first of all, it will lower our level of serotonin and GABA. So just drinking alcohol regularly, not even heavily, will do that, where you're feeling less serotonin and GABA, which we know is responsible for a lot of that peace and calm that we can feel in our lives. And then dopamine. Dopamine's a little trickier because alcohol actually does stimulate the release of dopamine. But because it's this artificial high that the body knows is never going to get in nature, it's just like any other drug. It already can sense this isn't right, right? So what it ends up happening is that we get these artificial peaks of dopamine. We get desensitized to them and we release less over time. And the brain retracts the receptors that are supposed to catch dopamine. So what's
Mm.
meaning is that the more time we drink and expose ourselves to alcohol, the less joy we're able, our brain is desensitized to just joy in the world. So like to me, for example, like I say this in the book as well, a happy hour was like a 10 for me. I couldn't wait for happy hour. But going on this beautiful majestic hike with my husband, it's just a 6, you know. And so when you take a break from alcohol, slowly that's reversing. Like the neurotransmitters and the receptors are all healing. And when you feel the normal amount of dopamine from looking at the flowers, from being with your kid and laughing with her, from, having a belly rub with a pet, from walking in the woods, all that stuff starts to really hit us so much more. And we feel like the meaning and just the awe and the wonder again, just like a kid, really, truly. What ends up happening too is that as that is healing, as your dopamine is going up, your serotonin and GABA are going up when you take a break from alcohol, all those stress hormones that alcohol were releasing are no longer there either. So, when you were just to look at a graph, a drinker has low levels of happiness neurotransmitters, high levels of stress hormones, and you completely reverse that when you take a break from alcohol. And I could feel it too. Like I wasn't depressed when I was drinking. I didn't associate with that kind of level of terms or words, but I was just apathetic, you know?
Yeah.
Like the week couldn't go fast enough. I wasn't really excited about anything. And I love how you say the words fully alive. Like I feel wonder, joy, awe, inspiration, creativity, really deep hits from my intuition. Those are insane. Purpose, meaning, all of these things. And what ends up happening is I think it's just this incredible alchemy when someone goes alcohol free that catapults them to that next level in their lives, whatever that looks like for them, the thing that they wanted next, that maybe they didn't even believe was possible for them. And so it's like, how could you just eliminate this one food or beverage from your life and achieve all of your goals and dreams? It's that feeling you're talking about that catapults you there.
Yes. To me it's just this level of like feeling stuck. And I've been very fortunate. I've had a really amazing career. I have a very amazing career. I've worked very hard, like successful, really proud of myself. But there's something about, and it's not like a midlife thing. I don't know what it is, but there's this epiphany right now about not having the brain space dedicated to that drink that has just allowed me to focus on the possibilities, and the possibilities are rushing in. It's that, and the intuition hit that you've mentioned, that has gotten so much stronger. I mean, I've always been very intuitive just naturally, but it's incredible to see what happens when you remove that layer of being stuck and also let yourself explore what could be. Like, everybody kind of thinks, is this it? Like, is this job going to be forever? Is this life situation going to be forever? Is this house or apartment going to be forever? I find that when we leave alcohol behind and you're so far into this journey, like I can only imagine what 5.5 years feels like. It just feels like life really kicks into high gear because it's like, now you see it. Now we can really live. Let's do this.
Absolutely. That intentionality, that confidence, that courage you also get from going alcohol free, like just telling
Mm,
your friends, telling a bartender, like that courage, all these incredible gifts that you get, like alchemize together to really create this new sense of focus and drive and ambition that's so heart centered as well, with the sense of possibility and what you're capable of. And obviously too, all the time that opens up. I don't think that most
yes.
people are like, all their time was drinking. It's not about that, but it's the mental time, right? Like
Yes.
when we're constantly debating with ourselves whether we'll drink or not that night and all the whatever. It just, imagine for a moment, like if Einstein was always thinking about a beverage, like would we have the theory of relativity? You know what I mean? And I really do believe each and every one of us is a genius, and we have such an incredible gift to share with the world. And alcohol is not a question of like morality or right or wrong. It's such an easy tool to use to continue to stay stuck. And when
Yeah.
we remove it, even for a break, we get so turned on to what's possible, and our inner gifts and our genius and our creativity just flourish so much. And I really do see it as an incredible road to fulfilling your bigger potential and your purpose on this planet. And that's why I believe in it so much. And it might sound almost naive to someone who hasn't tried it, but when you're on the other side, you're like, yep, I see
Yeah.
it. It's like that.
Yes, every day. So speaking of that, of trying it, like I mentioned, the conversations have started to open with some of my closest friends who were wildly resistant and very uncomfortable in the beginning to now. Most recently, I went on a bachelorette party for a friend's second marriage, and it was a wine tasting trip. And it was my first foray into a wine tasting trip, not drinking. And it was so fascinating to see the conversations shift throughout the day of, okay, well, are you sure you don't want an eight? No, I'm all good. Thank you so much. If there's a really amazing one, because I love wine, I'll have a sip. Had like 2 sips throughout the day. It was fine. And then, as they had more and more, it was, are you tired of us? You must be so annoyed with us. Oh my gosh, are we crazy? You're the sober one. And it was like the insecurity started coming out and the self judgment started to come out. And then the next morning, I woke up at 6, went to the gym. Everyone else woke up and felt like hell. Didn't, even if they didn't have a whole lot to drink. And that's when the questions started. It's like, I don't want to feel like this. This is crappy. But then immediately it's but I could never. I can't imagine giving up my martini. I can't imagine giving up, which they really don't realize is the changing the neural pathways. What do you say to someone to just get started? Because you have your 8-week program, which is so beautifully written about in your book. But what are your tips to just get over that initial hump?
Yeah. Like you said, I think just trying it, like I was saying earlier, as an adult, I had no idea what my natural mental state felt like. It was always being interacted with alcohol, leaving me to feel apathetic and low and whatnot, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the joy I felt, like the positive surge of emotions, the sense of wonder, the sense of awe, like alcohol couldn't hold a candle to those feelings, you know? Like they say, when you numb the bad, you're also numbing the good. Alcohol is numbing our experience to life, it's numbing our senses. And so instead of thinking of it as something you can't give up or it's going to be so hard and going to be so deprived, what if it's the best thing you've ever tried? What if it like really makes you happier and more joyful than anything ever before? And so having a little bit more curiosity and kind of a positive attitude towards it will work. And obviously not making it a forever thing. Our brain is not good with the word forever. Someone's just starting out, I would kind of earmark some kind of time to do it for. Obviously I like to promote 2 months because that's going to have a lot of changes that happen over the course of your body and your brain. But a month is great. And, honestly, even 3 days is great if that's totally outside someone's comfort zone. And the
Yeah.
more you kind of flex your sober muscle and learn how to deal with certain situations on a Friday night and this, and the more that you feel the gratitude and really pick out the gratitude of like, wow, I was able to like really be present for homework time. Usually I'm just like, where's that glass of wine? And I really bonded with my daughter today or something. Really notice the differences of how life feels like alcohol free. It's going to be a pleasurable experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say that it's not just about the habit. So, yes, habit change is important. We want to change the behavior, like the drink shouldn't go to the lips, right? But it's actually like 20% about the actual behavior and it's 80% mindset, 80% about changing our belief system. So inherent, I can already hear in some of like your friends' comments is like normal adults drink, like we have to drink to feel good. Like how could I, not have the sense of pleasure in my life? So there's all of these beliefs that can be re-examined. And that's really what my 8-week program helps with is taking everything we think we believe about alcohol and just putting it on a pedestal and being a scientist about it and really analyzing it. And when we can change the fundamental beliefs we have about alcohol, this is what's interesting. Your subconscious desire will go away.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you don't see the benefit, the pleasure, all of these things that you were initially linking to alcohol, and you only see that next morning and that, the real, just the negative side effects, you just won't want it anymore. And
Yeah.
what example do I often use with this is cigarettes. Most people smoke cigarettes at one point or another, maybe in high school or college or something. Maybe not most people these days, but I did. I don't know. And you couldn't pay me to smoke a cigarette today. Like,
Yeah.
that's just so disgusting to me. And if we can get that way with alcohol, not to just be disgusted with it, but to really pop the illusion of what we think alcohol is doing for our lives and see it for what it really is. It's not about deprivation. It's not about you can't have it. You're actually excited to not drink,
Yes.
and you go on this incredible experiment. So I would say that to anyone who's curious. And also, you don't have to start with a break, just starting to lean into this conversation, to warm up your mind to this idea, to read a book, to listen to a podcast, to just kind of envelop your mind in this new conversation around alcohol is going to be super helpful. And then when you're ready for a break, you'll be told that by your intuition. So, it doesn't have to be so scary. I think like when we think that we get the awareness that we have to change our relationship with alcohol, it comes with this depressive, like, oh no, I'm going to have to stop drinking kind of thing. And it doesn't have to be like that. Like, just allow this to be a journey, an experiment, and, learn more and you'll slowly find your desires going away, especially too when you marry it with a break from alcohol.
I found one thing that worked for me, and I don't know if this works for anyone else, but like going out to dinner, because it's you're experiencing a series of firsts, like being
Yeah,
alcohol free. It's that first dinner party, it's that first happy hour, it's that first whatever. And I found that just getting through the order, like the group order out, and we're so lucky there's so many amazing mocktails now, particularly, at least in LA, New York, whatever. But just ordering the mocktail, everyone else is ordering their cocktail and giving it that order, and then everyone dives into their cocktail and everyone's surprised at how beautiful the mocktail looks. I don't know what everyone thinks it's going to look like, just a horrible glass of water, but it's like more beautiful sometimes than the actual cocktail itself. And then just getting past that, because then people start to feel tipsy, they completely forget about the fact that you are not drinking at all until they feel crappy later on, and then they start to ask the questions. And I felt very proud of myself, and I still feel very proud of myself the next morning when I'm like, God, I feel great today. I feel great. I woke up at 6 a.m. and I'm spending time with my daughter, and I finished my workout by 8:30 or whatever it is. And a last question, kind of before we wrap, you talk about that sense of integrity and pride and confidence in your self building. Can you describe kind of your experience and what people could expect to feel?
absolutely. And I think pride is such a great way to put it because, like, nobody ever regrets not drinking the next morning, you know? And yes, there might be some of those social situations that you feel awkward in or that take some explaining. But, like, again, those are just opportunities to grow. Those are opportunities to become more authentic in yourself, put up boundaries, stop people pleasing, like, not worry about what every other damn random person thinks about you and just do what's most aligned for you. And if you think about it, like, no other food or beverage gets this much consideration. Like,
Right.
nobody cares if you order something different, like if you're gluten free and you don't get this versus that. Like, why, as a society, are we putting so much freaking attention on a beverage? So much social status and meaning. Oh, she didn't drink. What does that mean about her?
Yes,
Like, God
exactly.
forbid, it's a beverage choice at the end of the day, you guys, right? It's like, it's not as big of a deal. But I think then that pride that you get of being okay with being different, right? Being like aligned with your values, committed to what you said you would do, feels so good the next day. And
Yeah.
it's like this spiral. It's like this upward well being spiral where you continue proving to yourself that you're looking out for yourself, that you trust yourself, that you feel so proud, taking the road less traveled. And it cultivates these qualities for anything else you want to do in life, right? And I think when it comes to integrity, like, we all have this image of what we wish we were doing in our world, and I think it's so painful when we fall so short of that. We're not perfect. And it's not like because you go alcohol free, you'll never miss a workout and you'll never, fall short as a human. But it's like, I always felt like alcohol, like, made it so much harder to even get even close to the version of myself I wanted to be, like, I wouldn't brush my teeth every night when I drank. And I'm sorry, who wants to be a 30 something woman who doesn't brush her teeth at night, right? It feels horrible. I wouldn't call my parents back when they called me because I wasn't feeling up to it. It's just these little things that were such a ding into my integrity, ding and how I felt about myself. And now I'm not a perfect person whatsoever, but I sure do try. And nothing like alcohol is holding me back anymore, you
Yeah.
know?
And you're not wasting a day. Like I found for Sunday mornings, like just it was a laying on the couch kind of day. And it was what kind of DoorDash can we do? And how do we keep our daughter occupied sitting inside the house, putting her in front of the TV because I felt like crap in my early 40s. I'm like, what is this? And then seeing the impact on little kids because the group of friends and totally fine. Again, like anybody who wants to drink. But then I was seeing our daughter and some of our other friends' kids doing chants when we would be out to dinner, like alcohol, alcohol. And a 6-year old chanting that? No, ma'am. That is not okay. And now, like, we have a wonderful big selection of alcohol in a little bar at our house, but like, it doesn't even like mean anything to me. And it doesn't mean anything to her either. And now our Sunday mornings are me going to the gym and then the farmer's market with our daughter and my husband to pick out things and plan meals for the week, which would have never happened before. So the new routines and the new rituals that I've discovered and taking making the most out of those Sundays, it's like I always wanted to, but now it's like had I known just that one thing was in between me and that wonderful experience, like I would have stopped a long time ago. But you have to be ready.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
love it so much. And you have to be brave enough to listen to your intuition because it is
Yeah.
not what everyone is doing. even though we're talking a lot about it lately in this alcohol-free movement, like most people are still the only ones in their social circle. So it's like you have
Yeah.
to go first. You have to be willing to be a leader around it. You have to not worry about what other people are going to think, but listen to your intuition.
Yeah.
Listen to your values. If your values are around presence, connection, health, consciousness, mindfulness, integrity, confidence, and if alcohol is not allowing you to be that version of yourself, then it's a value misalignment. And it doesn't matter how little or how much you drink, honestly. And that's what I love having this conversation is I don't care if someone drinks 10 drinks a day, 1 drink a week. If it's unaligned with your values, it will feel painful in your life.
Absolutely. And I do think that when people start that conversation or even start to think about it, there are so many other people out there that are curious about it too. They just don't feel like they have the permission to do it for all of the reasons we've just talked about. So again, being the trailblazer, if you're not the only one in your group, bring the conversation up. And I find that you do attract people like this who are actually doing the same thing because I feel like your frequency changes and you bring new people into your group. So
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
in every possible way. Well, I just want to give you an opportunity also to plug the book anywhere else that people can find you because this has been so wonderful. I've loved this conversation so much.
Yeah, of course. If you want to learn more about my story, my framework, and just the incredible benefits you'll go from taking a break from alcohol, do check out Euphoric, Ditch Alcohol, Gain a Happier, More Confident You. You can get it anywhere books are sold, Amazon, look up Euphoric. Or if you want a quick link, just go to www.euphoricbook.com. And if you're interested in working with me and my team, we have group programs not only for helping people ditch alcohol, but then that new energy that you get to really discover what that next purpose is in front of you. I also certify new coaches and do business coaching. I host retreats for women all around the world. I just got back from Bali hosting an alcohol-free retreat. So a lot of fun stuff going on. Be sure to check out euphoricaf.com and get on the newsletter to hear about any new opportunities. And then I'm on Instagram pretty actively as well at euphoric.af.
I love that handle. It's a great one. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Karolina. This has been wonderful. And I hope we've inspired some people to, if not completely quit drinking or go alcohol free, to at least start the conversation in their own head and with their own group.
Well, thank you, Christy, for your bravery to share your story. I love it so much. It's really inspiring.
Of course. Thank you so much. Well, that's it. Another episode of What Nobody Tells Us. I hope you learned something. I hope you felt something. And I hope you feel empowered to go start a conversation with somebody who you know might be going through something that you don't understand. Lean in. Don't peace out. Thanks so much for spending some of your day with me today. I really, really love that you did that. If you want to reach out, if you got an idea for an episode, you just want to give me some feedback or just say, hey, do so at Nobody Tells Us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, or X, whatever we're calling it these days. No one knows. Reach out, Christy at nobodytellsus.com. Shoot me an email there or visit my website, www.nobodytellsus.com. Until next time, see you later.